All right. So, hey everyone, we are back with another What Sold video. As you can see, I have a visitor with me today, Mr. Pish Posh.
She let me come out of the shipping department to be on a video.
Anyway, we are just going to be sharing with you what sold in our online reselling shops from the week of November 13th through the 19th. And we are going to start with eBay. As you can see, we have this Chantal pot and butter warmer, kind of like a trivet that you would set the pot on, and it holds a tea light to keep whatever's in the pot warm. So I believe we've sold the trivets before in the past on Etsy,
we've
like
only
a long time ago.
We've only ever found the trivets. They're actually fairly common.
Yeah.
We found them more than once, and we actually have another one,
Right.
a large one that holds 3 tea lights right now listed.
We have that one listed right now. Right. Okay. So this one we picked up on our road trip to Washington, and we were in Washington when we picked it up. And I just thought that was really interesting to find one with the pot that went with it.
Yeah.
And it was
and
new.
Unused.
And yeah, it was new in its box. So that was kind of interesting. I don't think there were really that many comps for it. Right?
No, because I don't think you find them new in the box like that.
Not anymore.
Very rare. So you'll see the pots are listed sometimes and the trivets, but rarely together.
Right, because Chantal, I think they still make stuff. They still make pots. I feel like I've seen the brand like at TJ Maxx or something. Anyway, we didn't sell that for $50, but we did sell it for $40. We took an offer for that. Okay, next up is this talking chess set. This was one of your finds.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we found it while we were out of town.
We were in Missoula.
And I think you told me at the time that someone was hiding it on the shelf.
I don't know if they were hiding it, but I was with one of the boys in toys, and we were looking at bagged toys just to see what was there. And I noticed this was behind the edge of the shelf, just kind of stashed.
Tucked away a little
bit. It didn't seem like, it was put there by an employee.
Mm-hmm.
But when I saw it was a chess set and a talking chess set, that was pretty cool. So I just checked it and had all the parts.
So we sold that one for $50. That was the full asking price that we sold that for. Next up was just a belt. I think I only picked it up because it was new with tags. Worth, I don't have much to say about that brand in general. Even solds for the belts were so-so. But new with tags and kind of a designer-ish type brand. And it was a stretch belt. I don't know. I just picked it up as a bread and butter type item. And we ended up taking an offer for $18.74.
So it was totally worth it?
Totally worth it.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
I don't know. It was like, yeah, worth the worth. Worth was worth it. Okay, so this is a Johnny Was brand. A little bit different than the normal Johnny Was design in the clothing. So it was just like a sweatshirt material. It had no embroidery, which is what we're used to seeing with Johnny Was. And it says Johnny Was on the tag, as you can see. It just has these stick figures, and the Johnny Was does have sublines, and this subline was Pete and Greta. So it's just a very different kind of style clothing, but it was a hooded zip-up vest. So it did take a little while to sell, but it sold for $63.99. So that was a good deal. And then I ended up picking this one up at Goodwill not that long ago, actually. And even though this is the type of thing I usually don't mess with, but I let you find things like this. You weren't with me that day. And I just was in the hardware tool, whatever area. And I saw 2 of these boxes, and I thought they were new. They were vintage. I looked them up. I saw some good prices. And so we sold this one for $70. What is it exactly? It's like a motion sensor.
It is, yeah. It's kind of the old school motion sensor. So, the beam of light comes out one, bounces off the reflector and goes in. And basically it's a switch. And so people use these a lot for driveways. So when someone drives through, or, old style security. And what's interesting is when you look at it, it says Safe House, but on the back, it'll actually show that it's a Radio Shack brand. So obviously no longer available since Radio Shack is not around. But people who have, these old style security setups, can use this to replace what they've already got. So you bought 2 of them.
Yeah.
One of them was brand new, and this is the one that sold. The other one, once I pulled it all out, realized the reflector was missing. So I'm still going to list it, but we'll just list it for parts.
Okay, sounds good. And I don't remember what I paid. It was like $7 or $10. $7.99. That's what
Each.
that was in my head. Okay. Next up. Dude, it's slow today. Blue's Clues. I think I got these.
You did.
Just in a baggie, like Goodwill bag wall or something
they
like that.
sat for a while.
They sat for a really long time.
Longer than I expected.
Well, it's because it's 2019. So the vintage Blue's Clues,
yeah,
that's what you're going to look for. When I found them, I don't know. You know what? I do remember seeing that there was a date on them. And so, but I just thought because there were so many pieces to it that it might be worth it. But
well, it was. It just took a while.
It took a while. $17. I probably paid a couple bucks for the bag. And next up, Ozark Trail. Where did we get these? Are these bins?
Possibly. Most likely, yes.
Bins or that trip to Polson?
No, I think that was bins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you brought these home.
Yeah, I grabbed them because, they were new. They were unused. No tags on them, but no scratches, no wear whatsoever. It's Ozark Trail, so, you'll see that.
Not the biggest brand.
No, it's camping, hunting, fishing. You'll see it at Walmart. You'll see it in, Cabela's, I think.
Inside.
But what I liked about them is I just thought, oh, they're like brand new and they're great. So someone either wants them, or if they don't, we'll use them.
Right.
And so, yeah.
And we sold them for $15, right?
And that was higher than most people were getting. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
At least they didn't last long. Like they sold fairly quickly.
Faster than I expected.
This time of year, especially. Okay, so after my office supply video, I was especially looking in the office supply section of the thrift store, but this was hanging with the flatware. So it's just the bag wall. I always look at the bag, like pretty much anything in the bag wall is one of my favorite spots in the thrift store. So I really like the design on here.
Wood grain top.
Yeah, that fake wood grain. Kind of looks like a Cutco handle. Anyway, sold for $18.99. So nothing crazy, not like some of the staplers and things we saw in that office supply video, but not too bad. Something I wouldn't have maybe looked twice at before I had done that research.
I think the style of it, though, is unique enough, right?
Mid-century looking.
Yeah, it catches someone's eye.
Yeah, they're this what is it? The Ace Liner 502. If you can find it, I think I even mentioned it. Not particularly this model, but if you find office supplies in like turquoise, red, certain very mid-century colors, then those are going to do the best. This I picked up in the same place as that vintage denim jacket. It's that I talked about in one of my last What Sold videos that sold really high. But this one, the brand, let's see, the label, here it is. Jack Frost. I just love old labels like that.
It's cool.
They're just so cool looking. Jack Frost woolen wear. Comps for the brand weren't that crazy good. I mean, not that there was a ton, but there was a few things. And this one didn't have a size on the label, but it had no holes, no pulls, no stains. So I was about to say where I found it. It's a thrift store that's going out of business, or that's out of business, that they're just trying to clear out the place, the building that it's in. So they were having kind of pop-up sale type things over the summer, Friday afternoon. So I picked up that vintage denim jacket from like the 50s, 60s. This I dated to be about the 40s. So I got a few pieces of vintage clothing that day. So this was, I think, maybe the second one that sold out of it. So $30 for that.
And that's the first time I've ever seen that label.
Yeah, I
We come
hadn't
across
seen it
Pendleton quite
Yeah.
often, but not Jack Frost.
Utah Woolen Mills. So very cool. And now this was one of our best sales of the week, I think, as I just looked through all what we sold. But this was very unusual. I got this at a yard sale. It was I've probably mentioned it before because I got quite a few things there that day, but it was this old Montana rancher. And I drove out, dusty driveway long through all this farmland to his barn and his house. And he was, I don't know, in his 70s or 80s. And he just had a bunch of stuff out. And so he had, a pole or, clothesline of clothing. So, I don't know, I picked up like a Pendleton blazer.
Oh, yeah.
A few flannel shirts or Western shirts I think I picked up. And then I saw the trim down here as I was going down the row of clothing. And I saw the trim either on the collar. And I was like, ooh, I'm like Southwest pattern. Yeah. I'm like, it's vintage. What's it going to be? And I totally was not expecting Carhartt to be the brand, because as I got up to it, I realized it's velour, right? It's just not a type of material that you associate with Carhartt.
Yeah, and if you look at the label up close, you can kind of see the age of it.
Yeah.
That is not something you're going to see anytime in the last few years, but yeah, pretty cool. Not your usual Carhartt.
And I think there had to have been another, it had a Talon zipper, which is another indicator of age. But anyway, I did see other Carhartt vintage velour jackets in this style that had sold, but there was only one in my research I found that had the Southwest design to it. So I priced mine at $100. The plain velour ones I think were going for $60 or something like that. And so I know we did get offers. We got offers at around that $50, $60. And I just thought, no, that.
It's too unusual.
The Southwest trim is just too special, right? Mm-hmm. So I think we countered at 80 or, 75 at the lowest. But then somebody came in and just paid full price. And he left really good feedback. And he said, thanks so much for offering kind of a unique or rare piece for such a good price. Mm-hmm. So to him, the $100 was a good deal. So it just goes to show you never know.
Good deal for us too.
Yeah. And so at that yard sale, I ended up, all the clothing that I had, and actually all the hard goods I had bundled together at one point, he just charged me $20 for what was in my arms, I think, at that point. And then I did that, and then I went into the barn. He had a bunch of brass and different things in the barn, and I paid separately for those. But this was in the $20 bundle. Now this you picked up not that long ago, right?
Yeah.
Because I remember you talking about you like the...
I want to say that was at the bins as well. They'll sometimes put stuff like that underneath, just on a shelf, and you have to dig for it. Mm-hmm. I honestly just grabbed it because it was the bins, not thinking that it would be a quick sell.
Right.
And it sold really fast.
Yeah, that wasn't that long ago, because I remember you're like, look at that font. That's so 90s.
Yeah, and we found that style, if you will. But the unfinished wood, maybe that was the selling point, because usually a 3-gang cover plate.
What does gang mean?
It's the amount of...
Toggles?
No, it's the amount of spaces. So there could be 4.
Oh.
So it could be 4 switches. That'd be a 4-gang. That's a 3-gang. But that's very unusual. Normally you have 2, right? Maybe your porch light and your kitchen light, but this is 3. So I kind of thought it would languish, but it sold pretty fast.
Right. And we have 4 more. Is that what you got a bunch of them that day?
Yeah.
Okay, you have worried me for a minute because I'm like, it says there's 4 available.
That's
I'm like, is that true?
my brain
Okay.
is functioning slowly.
Okay, it's all right. It's like the computer today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so $12.99 for one of them. That's pretty good.
It is pretty good, yeah.
Plus shipping.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a blazer, kind of a crazy looking thing that I picked up at Goodwill. And blazers there are $4.99, I think, generally. I did notice that they did price one up recently that I came across. I don't remember if it was the velvet one I just picked up, but anyway, I was like, oh, that's weird. Why are they deciding to just go crazy and like price something different than their flat rate of clothing? But whatever. I should come to expect it. But anyway, this one, Indigo Moon, known very much for this type of very bright, very colorful type art to wear clothing. You can see the buttons are all glass, like art glass toggles. So anyway, I just thought that was interesting. It's just a medium, but it sold for $27 within a couple of weeks of me listing it. Now I included this one even though it's been returned to us, just as another lesson in not letting buyers get to you. Because, you know, I've said before I have returns just kind of auto accepted. So we were, you know, going to give our money back no matter what. But the return request was reasonable. They said it didn't work. They said you could fast forward and rewind, but it wouldn't play, right?
Yep.
And we had these tapes, but they were all sealed.
Right.
So we didn't have one to necessarily test. So Mace just tested the functions of the buttons and everything.
Yeah, so I tested all of the functions
but we
with
didn't,
batteries, and
with
everything
batteries,
worked. Play worked, rewind, fast forward, all of those worked. Apparently, when you put the cassette in,
it
would not
it was
play.
bogged down.
And once we got it back, and I goofed around with it,
You went ahead and opened. Did you put a tape in?
They had opened it.
Oh, they
had
That's
opened
right.
one of the
That's
cassettes.
right.
So I had an open cassette. I was able to test it, and as they stated, when you hit play initially, it wouldn't turn. It's a 2-speed cassette recorder. So when you flip it to the faster speed, it would turn.
Oh, okay.
But it wouldn't turn on the slower speed.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things where, you know, how do you avoid that? Sometimes you can't.
Right.
But just returning it, you know, giving their money back, and then moving on.
The only kind of snag when I'm talking about it wouldn't seem such a big deal, except they decided to include a nasty note in the return, right? It wasn't anything eBay would see, but it was like a nasty handwritten note in there. And so, you know, you've already given, you know, I don't know. So at that point, you're just like, oh, what can you do to get back at them? But then you're like, oh, that's dumb.
No.
So
really, I think what I learned from that too is this was something we bought, and it's been in a box for a lot of years, right? I mean, again, I think the brand, right, Realistic, it looked like it had possibly been used once, but there was no way to know. So if you're going to buy vintage electronics, there's always that chance, right? Like I had opened and tested, made sure there was no batteries in it, because a lot of times the batteries would be corroded. It was clean. It looked great. It looked like it had not been used. But we didn't list it as, you know, basically it just showed that there was no evidence of use on it. But because it's been sitting for that long, possibly some of the mechanical features were a little stuck. So I've goofed around with it, and it is working now.
Right.
Yeah. So it's possible it just needed to be used. Or played with, but sometimes that's what happens with older electronics.
Right. And just a side note, the brand on this was Realistic. If you find any micro cassette recorders by Sony, those are definitely ones that you want to look up, because some of those can sell for really, really good money. Okay, this to me looks like an IKEA name, but it's not, right? Were these
Well-
part of that bins day that you got all that hardware?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, a bins find, and so just 2 cabinet drawer handle pulls for $10.
Yeah, and if you see that name, I mean, that name it's a standard name in hardware, but
Hefele.
it's a European brand, and so it's good quality. It does actually sell better than, some of the like Amarok, things like that.
Okay. Beanie, Kangol. Kangol hats. Some Kangol hats are really high priced. So I saw this at the bins. I think it was me. I know I've picked up a Kangol beanie before, so it's either this one or it was a different one, or one of us obviously picked it up. But it was definitely a bins pickup. So that one, $18.99 full asking price on that one. It's another one of yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bought this.
Was that
was on our trip.
The restore?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a bunch of tools had recently come in. We're in a cart next to the checkout, and they were pricing it, I think, as we were checking out. And I saw
they were
this.
only a couple bucks a piece.
Yeah, it's an unusual brand. It's not a Stanley or, something that normally you would see. And so I just saw Diamond, and I really liked the look of it, and thought, well, if it's not worth anything, I'll keep it. But
and that sold for that full asking price of $18.99.
Yeah, there's a lot of low ball offers, very, very low. But we just held out for a reasonable price, and someone.
And that was fairly quick too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is Cabela's chamois shirt, and vintage, made in the USA. Here's an old Cabela's label for that. I think we picked that up at our local thrift.
Yeah, we've had that
store.
one for
We've
a
had
bit.
it for a while, and I think we've dropped the price
I
on
think
it.
it took a season, a full year.
And it only sold for $20.
Yeah.
So we've kind of held back. I've seen vintage Cabela's since then, and I've just kind of like, So.
It doesn't seem to be very desirable.
Nope. Okay, so remember this. This was in my one of my haul videos that I shared with you, and I shared the pictures in that video as I was editing it. I had shared the pictures that you did end up cleaning it up so that you could actually see.
You could not see the graphic at all. There was kind of a milky film in there.
When I showed it on the camera, you couldn't see it, but then I popped these pictures up because you had it listed by then.
Right.
And so this is the one that had the Bat Masterson on one side, and then it's like Tombstone territory on the other. So anyway, we sold that one. We sold it as is. It sold for $25. So if you notice, sometimes when we have something that has flaws or it has a problem, we start our title with as is. Now that doesn't mean we're not going to take a return on this. That's kind of impossible even on eBay, because especially if something people call it not as described, it's coming back to you no matter what. But we kind of put it as like right at the beginning, just to hopefully catch the person's attention so that they will then look at the condition and maybe try to look and find the description and read and see what's wrong with it. So we just sold it as it wasn't working. It would just be for collecting, for display, something like that.
Or it's interesting with things
or they
like,
could repair it.
With lighters, they're very, very collectible. So this one clearly is not usable, right? There was issues with it. But it's also fairly rare. Like when you're doing research, it was hard to find exactly that graphic.
Right.
So, someone who collects could either just display it, or they might actually fix them, which would be cool, because then it's going to somebody who can actually give it new life, because at this point, it's just a paperweight. Right.
So $25. Again, I had gotten that at the bins, if you remember it from my vintage haul video. Okay, a Patagonia hat. This trout logo design is called Fitzroy, right? Or is it the coloring?
I think it's the trout design.
It's the trout, right?
Yeah, I think they'll
Because
be
that
like
coloring is on like a bison.
yeah,
it's
Fitzroy
on
bison and
yeah, so I think
different
it's the
things.
rainbow coloring.
Yep.
But anyway, I vaguely remember that this was at the local. This was at Flathead Thrift, and I think I probably did pay a little bit more than our normal standard $2 for a hat. But it sold for $28.99, which was our full asking price. And undies.
Tidy whities.
I love selling tidy whities for $40.
As long as they're brand new in the package.
New in the package. Only. And the reason I picked them up was they were from 2007. So I don't know if you want to comment on if men get attached to their underwear.
Well, I think they get attached to the brand and the fit.
Yes.
So going to get underwear and then the kind that you used to get are no longer available can be frustrating.
So these actually went overseas. So a European, I think it was European somebody needed some underwear. Okay, I'm pretty sure, yep, we gotta hop over that one. That was it for eBay for that week. Poshmark was still slow. It's picked up lately, but that we've been kind of working it a little bit more. This is a vintage hunting jacket by Redhead, which is not, it's just kind of an average brand, but I really liked the old label on it.
Yeah, the vintage one.
This was made in Hong Kong, so probably 80s. But what was interesting is that we had gone through recently, you went through and like dropped the prices on a lot of the stuff in our store. Just on eBay to try to move things along that had been sitting there. And I didn't do the same thing over on Poshmark. It was too much work. And so this ended up selling for $45, even though we had it like on eBay for like $25.
And yeah, for me, it's a good lesson because, you know, on eBay, this was on eBay for a while, over a season, and it wasn't getting a lot of interest. But then it just upright sold on Poshmark for asking price.
$45.
So having stuff in multiple places helps. Okay,
this is Sims fishing shirt. It is a brand we kind of keep a lookout for fishing clothing. Only $21 on this one, but we're not really in fishing season at the moment, so. And then these were bins. They had to have been, right? Because they are totally beat up and dirty. We wouldn't have paid a whole lot for them. These took a while.
Yeah.
Wrangler, they're just...
There's nothing special about them except that they were made in USA.
Yep.
And they're pretty distressed. They were at the bottom of the pile, had been really picked over, and I was kind of frustrated. So I got these and a pair of Levi's that were in the same condition. And yeah, they eventually
$28
sold.
on Poshmark, so that's pretty good. Okay, moving over to Etsy. This is the Metal and Tweed Etsy shop. So anything you want to say about this door edge that sold for $12?
Okay, it's called a flush bolt. So it goes in the top corner of a door, the inactive door.
Oh, that you lock.
Yeah, so if you have a double French door, one of them has to be fixed, and then the other one closes into it. That's what this would do, is it latches into the jamb on the top of the door and keeps it from opening.
Oh.
But then you can pull it down, and it'll pull the bolt down, and then you can open both doors. So this is unusual. I mean, these are a dime a dozen in general, but this one's vintage. It's actually copper, right? You do not see that anymore. They're all brass, or they're black, or they're steel. And this one was only 4 inches. Most of them were 6. So it's just a really odd little piece that I thought, you know, somebody's got to want this eventually. And they did.
And they did. $12. And a calculator, $26, higher than we would have gotten on eBay.
Oh, totally.
So
yeah, there's a bunch of them on eBay, and they don't really sell. This model doesn't sell really well, but on Etsy, you know, a lot of times these old calculators do better on Etsy than on eBay.
Yep. Same with Dymo. This is just a little mini
This is tiny.
Dymo.
I mean, it's like 3 inches long or something.
Yep, I always love those. Those were super cute.
Yeah.
And
with the box and everything.
It was for making like cloth labels,
Mm-hmm.
right? It was just different. But it was orange too. That was cool. And $18 for that one. So yeah, the Dymo label makers will sell on Etsy, no problem.
Yeah.
I think there'll be one in next week's What Sold as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I sold a pattern for $10. We're not going to talk about patterns.
Okay. Moving
Because
on.
I need to list
That's quite the
a
jumpsuit,
bazillion.
though.
I know.
Look at that belt.
But see, I love looking for patterns that look like that because people still want to make that and wear it.
I know they do. And look, it's easy.
It's easy. It was 50 cents somewhere. Oops, it's just grease pencil. And then I sold a set of flatware in the flatware shop that I'm not really working on anymore. We're going to end up moving our flatware to different. It's just one too many Etsy shops and I can't handle it. So I sold this set. It's Oxford Hall. It's a vintage company. Very mid-century looking, but these were like from 1990, so they are not like mid-century flatware, but they were still vintage. And that one was beat up. I thought maybe that was the label thing. Nope, there it is. Oxford Hall stainless Korea. So it was a service for $4, plus it had some extra pieces to it. So $60 for that. Then Ruby Lane, a little vintage brooch. Hippos are always popular. I picked this up at a yard sale for $2 and it sold for $15. And a coffee mug sold for $14. So just no brand on that, just a stoneware mug, very retro vintage looking and had a cool drip glaze on it. So that sold for $14. So that was it. Those were our sales for the week. Thank you, Mr. Pushposh, for answering my questions. So I didn't have to tell everyone, I have no idea why he bought this. I don't know where it came from.
Details.
Anyway, as always, leave a comment down below about your selling week, how it went, if sales are still going pretty steady for you. What was your favorite thing that you sold this week? And we will be back later in the week together again because we got to go thrifting together and we have some things to share with you. So we'll see you later on this week.